Cool. All right, Michelle. First of all, thank you for doing this. And why don't you tell people who you are, and we'll go from there.
Right on. My name is Michelle Parker, and I grew up, born and raised here in Lake Tahoe. Grew up skiing at the mountain that's now known as Palisades. And yeah, I grew up racing, and then kind of at the age of 15, moved into park skiing and competed in, park skiing, X Games and slopestyle and half pipe and that kind of stuff. And then one thing led to another. And growing up here in Olympic Valley, I just I don't know, following the likes of Shane McConkey, Ingrid Backstrom, Scott Gaffney. Yeah, a lot of legends came from here. So I kind of always wanted to film, and I knew that. And yeah, I started to film at a pretty young age, must have been around when I was 20, 21 years old. And yeah, my career has kind of constantly developed a little bit here and there. And I've managed to keep it interesting for myself. And the love for skiing is still alive and well, and yeah, still going.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think you've also managed to keep it interesting for everybody that watches you and follows you. Like for however long your career has been at this point, like everybody is still super interested in what you're doing. And I think that's a credit to you and how you've kind of portrayed the types of things that you do.
I appreciate it. I think, one of my earlier influences, one of my best friends for a long time, and yeah, it was JP Auclair. And he kind of went from mogul skiing to, park skiing to big mountain skiing to more ski mountaineering, ascents in Chamonix and all over the world. And his vision of skiing and wanting to constantly learn kind of was something that he instilled in me, I think. And I always wanted to learn more about the mountains, more about rope work, more about how to access terrain, more about planning expeditions. And that just kind of constantly made me develop more as an athlete, I think, and kept skiing really interesting to myself, which probably was portrayed because of that, I think.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Is that how you've managed to keep it interesting to yourself, but to you for this long? Because it's I don't know, does it get boring? Does you seem psyched all the time on skiing, and that's something that I struggle with all the time. Is some days I'm just not into it, and some days I'm just I don't know, I don't want to do it. And I get it, cameras are on, you put on a happy face and you just kind of go for it, but it seems like you're genuinely excited to be there all the time.
Yeah, fair enough. We laugh about it. I was just out hiking in Tahoe. We have a really strong community, and the way that I interact mostly with that community is through time in the mountains.
Yeah.
And the people that I get to hike with are multi-generational. We have I don't know, Glenn Polson, whose father was one of the founders of Olympic Valley, and then Jim Zellers. He was a legendary snowboarder at the time of Tom Burt. He was kind of Tom Burt's partner. His wife, Bonnie Zellers, also an amazing snowboarding pioneer. Then there's Jeremy Jones. Then there's myself and Nick Russell. And there's just Jim Morrison, these incredible people that we get to learn from and soak it all up. But these people, we were always laughing because we're yep, some things never change. We're still having a beer at the trailhead with the same people we've been skiing with for the last 20 years, and it's still equally as fun. The stoke is still alive, and I'm so surrounded by that, being in this group of friends that access the mountains together. And it's really inspirational to me to have these, older friends who I get to learn from and follow. And I don't know, it's just so inspiring to see them leading these really healthy, active, lifestyles that have, I don't know, stood the test of time. There's longevity there. And that's kind of I guess that's a goal of mine in skiing, is to have longevity and maintain the stoke and be doing this when I'm 60, 70 years old.
Yeah, so you've no interest in an actual retirement from professional skiing, or is that is that true? Or is that something you've kind of thought about at all? I guess the only reason I ask is because Angel retired recently. You don't usually see pro skiers do a full on, hi, I'm leaving skiing. I'm, the way that she did. So
Yeah.
I guess it kind of prompts the question for people that are kind of in that same category, if you will. Have you thought about what a pro skiing retirement would even look like?
No, I mean, for me, I don't really have that desire. I think for Angel, it probably was the right move for her and what her desires are. And I think that for myself, I don't really see wanting ever to retire necessarily. I love it so much, and I think that there's like in one way, shape, or form, I'm going to be heavily involved in the ski industry
Yeah.
for many years to come. Like I just love it so much. And I have so much appreciation for it. And yeah, so I haven't really thought. I mean, I've thought about it, and I've been like, yeah, I'm not going to screw that. I'm not going to do that. This is the most fun thing ever.
Yeah, I guess it's just burnout's a big topic lately, right? So I
Absolutely.
feel I feel like that's in a lot of ways that's one of the things that gets talked about next is because people are just like they get burnt out and then they're like I'm done with it. I don't want to do it anymore.
Fair. Yeah, totally. And like that's, not to say that like I haven't experienced burnout in my career, like
Right.
to keep it super real, like for sure I felt that, but I think that that's a result of maybe me not having established boundaries for myself and having an understanding of how much work I can personally take on. Like that's what that means to me. I
Mm,
think after having dealt with it for a few years, I really came to this conclusion like I need to change this. Like that's in my control to establish those boundaries, to recognize how much work I can take on and to like, yeah, be firm with that so I don't get burnt out. Because I think it's not like a good sign when you talk to someone and they're like, I'm so sorry, I'm just so busy. I'm like, whoa, that means you got to build some boundaries,
yeah.
friend. Like that's like such a sign. And totally that this is like a new me talking when I'm like saying, like I've struggled with this too, for sure. But I think it's a really important thing. And I think that burnout being a topic of conversation that we're inviting to the conversation table right now in society is like so important. Like we shouldn't be tapped out, we shouldn't be burning ourselves out. There's so much more to life than getting burnt out on work or whatever it is.
Right, especially in this industry, right? Like this is an industry that's supposed to be based on fun and like being in the outdoors and kind of having a good time. If you're burnt out doing this, imagine doing other things.
Yeah, so that was a good self check for me. I was like, oh, okay, I need to change some stuff because this has been something I've been so passionate about and love it so much, and it should be fun. Skiing to me needs to always remain fun. That's why I do it.
What do boundaries and what does setting boundaries look like for you?
For me, it means really figuring out what my truth is, like what I really want to do with my time, with my energy, how I want to spend that, and then aligning with that. I think in my younger years, I definitely said yes a lot more and would just be like, yeah, totally, that sounds awesome. But then I didn't have the foresight to be like, oh, if I do X, Y, and Z in the next month, I'm going to be burnt out.
Mm,
Like I didn't have that foresight. So now I'm trying to just like have a lot more consciousness to every decision that I make and figure if it aligns with like my truth and what I want to do. And then if it does, then I don't know, I'm probably not going to get burnt out. Like it's going to fuel me. And there's some things that you have to do, right? You have to bend and you have to like sacrifice. And we all like work is work. You have to do some things sometimes that you don't want to do. But just kind of yeah, I think it was bringing a lot more awareness to my decision making and when to my yeses.
yeah, I guess I think everybody's fear on that side is always like if I don't say yes to this thing, I'm not going to get the next opportunity, right? Especially
Right.
in this industry and especially with athletes, it's like your time is somewhat limited in terms of what you can do. So, or at least it's perceived to be limited early on in your career. You're like, okay, like my time is now. If I don't make it now, I'm not going to make it. You hear that kind of thrown around a lot, and I guess it's nice to hear that that's a thing that you've kind of learned over time. But I wonder what that means for somebody like I don't know that's just starting their path, right?
Yeah, totally. And there's a lot to unpack there too. Like, I don't know, especially being female, to be honest, like I've felt like I have to prove myself. Like, yeah, I have to say yes. I have to commit. I have to show up. I have to like take these opportunities. And I think that's like to credit a lot of my success. I did say yes and I like showed up and I did the best of my ability, like yes was a powerful thing for me. But there comes a time when like too many yeses is like, yeah, it's not going to help you out. So, um, yeah, being more wise with that. It's tricky. It's something I'm working on for sure, but I think I've come to a place where I'm a lot more aware of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like yeah, if you're comfortable saying like I'm comfortable with my decision making and I'm not burnt, feel like you're probably at that place, especially when you're working with major brands like Red Bull and Arc'teryx and some of the brands that you're working with, right? Like because those are I think people don't realize that those sometimes can be big asks too, right? You're working with a brand, there's certain expectations that you have to kind of work through. And
Yeah.
I think people think once you get signed, it's like, that's it. The work's done. You're here.
Yeah, totally. There's so much that goes into being an athlete beyond just skiing, that's for sure. I mean, back in the day, it was a lot more just skiing.
Really?
Before we had social media, yeah, for sure. I'm so thankful that I got a taste of that era of professional skiing. Like, you didn't have to post anything. You were just skiing and you were like awarded based on your ski ability, and that was that. It was awesome. It was a lot more simple times.
Do you like the social aspect of it? Like, do you like the social media aspect of it? And do you like that it's part of your job?
Yes and no, to be honest. I love taking photos and I love sharing photos. I love seeing other people's photos and getting inspired by what other people do. But at the same time, I think that the negative side of it really does outweigh the positive side of it for me. I did come from that era where sponsors approached you and supported you because of you as an athlete and who you were and what you did. And that's on and off the ski hill. There's like being an athlete, I think, is all encompassing. I think you have to be a pillar of your community too, and like give back to your sport. I think that like is the this wholesome athlete when you think about it. But yeah, where was I going with this? I a little lost with that. Anyways, yeah, companies supported you because of that, and now you're getting reached out to by these companies that are like I've had companies be like, "Oh, can you make a post? And then based on how good your post does, we'll decide if we want to work with you." And I'm like, "Whoa, that doesn't feel genuine." Like I'm not, I don't use the word influencer to describe what I do. Like I really do think of myself as an athlete. I think that there's people who have influence, but I think that word has been contrived in some ways. Like it doesn't always have this positive reaction that I get from hearing it, or yeah, some of the descriptions of it. But yeah, I'm like, whoa, I want people to stand behind me because of what I do and believe in me because of that. That feels genuine. That feels authentic. That feels like when I'm representing a brand, I'm actually selling the brand because I believe in the brand too. Like I'm a big fan of authenticity. I have a hard time doing the social media stuff that our jobs have become, like the advertising on there, the tagging of the sponsors, whatever it may be, or the one-off posts. And I have respect for it. People are making a living doing it, but I don't know. It's not super
Yeah,
authentic in my own
one-offs to
voice.
me are like not shouldn't be, and I don't know. It's hard for me to say, and I never want to I don't know, pick on the way that anybody makes their living, right? It's always a fine line between picking on what someone else does, but like for me, a single post or a single sponsorship or a one-time deal doesn't seem to be that's not support, that's not a partnership between you and a brand. That's like they're just trying to see what they can get for the money that they feel like is worth throwing at you, you know?
Yeah, right. So I've done one-off actually, and I was so down with it, and I like still love it. I've used the recipe every time, but it was for Rainier gin, like Rainier
Really?
beer. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
totally. And they're like, "Can you come up with like a cocktail recipe?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" And I did a gin fizz, like a Ramus gin fizz. It's like a pretty fancy cocktail. If I was a bartender and someone ordered it, I'd probably be pretty bummed, but I love the drink. But yeah, that was my one time that I did it. And yeah, I have respect for the way that everyone does it. Just for myself personally, it doesn't feel, I don't know. I really love the brands that I work with, and I am like embedded in those brands, and I work really closely with them, and those relationships are super important to me. And I like really do believe in the product that I use. That
Yeah.
feels good to me.
Yeah, and I think you work with some of the best brands when it comes to that stuff too. Like you work with brands that have been known to stand behind people and are known to like, I don't know, kind of not just give back to the athletes that they work with and support the athletes that they work with, but also give back to the community and be like part of what's around them. So, and
Yeah,
especially like we have a mutual sponsor in Darn Tough. That's kind of how we got linked up. And it's like
totally.
they're kind of the perfect example of that. Like they're based in Vermont. It's a great company to work with. And I don't know, they make socks. Like everybody needs socks, right?
Yeah, but that's a really good example. Like, I don't know, they're local to the US. I mean, I've been there and I've like interacted with so many of the workers, and it's like it's a good place to be, and it's the quality and the genuine care that goes into making those socks. Like I always laugh because I'm like, how did I become such a sock fan? But I truly am. And people are like darn toughs last forever.
Oh, people freak out about it. Like it's a very when we announced that we were working with them, like I got a bunch of messages that were just like, "Oh my god, these are the best socks." It's like darn tough or die, and I'm just like, "Okay, cool." Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I definitely agree now, but I agree, and I think I agreed before. But it's I don't know. It's I've been really psyched to work with them, but I kind of want to shift gears a little bit from the sponsor topic thing and kind of go back to something that you said, being like making it in the industry as a female. Like I just told you before, I just had Nick Sargent, who's the president of SIA, Snow Sports Industry of America, on the show about an hour ago. And we kind of talked about this participation study that they put out. And it talks about the growth of, or like just the different categories that SIA has kind of put different people in. And kind of the, I don't know, they put everybody into segments and they have it separated by demographic. And one of the things that I was most surprised with is female participation is down in 2021 as opposed to years prior. And I kind of
Whoa.
felt like it was a better year than ever for female participation. Like it's more people are talking about it more online, right? So now I'm
Yeah.
just like, I don't
But
know.
it totally makes sense to me, Adam, because like females were far more affected by that pandemic than males were, right? With childcare and
Oh,
being
that's a good
mothers
point.
and everything, like in the workforce, like women lost their jobs. Like that makes sense to me. So like women aren't going to be recreating and like participating in extracurricular activities as much too. So that makes sense. That goes with all the data that I've looked at from the pandemic,
That makes a ton of sense. And I didn't
which
even
is
think
so
about it.
sad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And he didn't really have a great answer either. And I guess this is why, like, I don't know, we just didn't think about it. It's not from our
Yeah.
perspective.
I mean, I think like as far as like women in the workforce, we took a significant step backwards throughout the pandemic with like the steps that we have taken forwards. We lost some headwind for sure, which is so unfortunate. Yeah, and I don't really know how to. I mean, yeah, that's a big one, but
How I hate these kind of questions, but I'm gonna ask anyway, like because I feel like it makes you speak for every woman, and that's a stupid thing to me. But how do you make it in the ski industry as a woman? Like what kind of boundaries do you set for yourself? How have you been able to be as successful as you are? And obviously, like part of it's talent and hard work and the work that you put in, and nobody will ever discount that. But what because this is actually one of the listener questions that I had was like, what is your advice to somebody that's up and coming as a female in the industry?
yeah, totally. Wow, it's a great question, and I'm sure that I mean things have changed over the time from when I started. When I started back in the day, I got my start because I was noticed. I was skiing in the park. I had my long braid that I still run, and Jay Leventhal, who owned Line Skis at the time, approached me and handed me his business card, and like that was my start. He got me into competing everything, and I just kind of went with it. So I feel really lucky about that. But how have I maintained it and everything like that? Like I mean, yeah, there's been times where I've dealt with like really difficult situations being a female, but for the most part, like things have been getting better. Things have been on the right track to like expand. There's more women now involved than I think there's ever been, especially in the last few years. Like there's more females behind, the camera, directing, producing, guiding. Like I'm seeing that growth happen. Obviously, I am like it can't happen fast enough, but I think what yeah, it's a deep one. There's like so many answers to this. Like
And it's very general, and I know this, and that's kind of why I dislike the question personally because I don't know, it's not very targeted, right? It's just kind of like
yeah,
general. Can you give me an answer to help me figure this out? And I always wonder because right now seems like the time when people really give a shit about social issues.
yeah,
So
totally.
it's a time that it's really important for us all to talk about it, right?
Totally. I think, well, there's a few things. I think taking opportunities and showing up and doing your best and like, yeah, all that regular stuff that we heard, like showing up, working hard, whatever, like all of that. Totally.
Right.
You also have to be a good person. You have to be fun to be around. Like the ski industry, the outdoor industry is a place for fun. And I think that, yeah, like that's when you travel, when you do all these jobs and everything, like that's at the root of it. We already spoke about this. Like we got to have fun, continue that. The best skier on the mountain is the one having the most fun.
Right.
But I think to like, yeah, take it a little bit deeper. Like as a female, I started to realize that like we weren't necessarily taking initiative. Like if you talk to brands and you ask them, how many proposals did you get from men last year versus women? Like men are like, I don't know, like 50. And women, like I literally had a brand say I got one proposal compared to like the 50 I got from a guy, from the men. And so, yeah, that to me, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Also, we're less inclined to take initiative and to ask and to, just raise our hand and make our presence known in the room. So to me, I am starting to tell more women, like, take initiative, like ask for what you deserve, own your space, know that you are worth it, and like speak up. Like I had in my upbringing, there was multiple times where like a cinematographer would be like, Michelle, your shots out here are equally as important to us as Mark Abma's shots. Like speak up if you see something. And I had someone telling me that was why I believed in myself at that time. You know, in the moment I was like really passive. I was like, oh, I'll like ski a line, maybe, after they're done. And totally that's where I was like super polite. And I was in my head, I was 17. And I was like, I don't know. I'm a girl. Like I'm new here. Like I'm the rookie. I'm not going to speak up. And it took people telling me to do that. So I think, yeah, I would say that's my number one piece of advice, maybe like take initiative and speak up.
Yeah, I think that's huge. It's huge for anybody. For some reason, it does feel like guys will take that initiative a little more often for whatever reason, and almost to a fault where they'll feel like they deserve it.
Oh,
And I'll get
totally.
this all the time. Like I get like I don't know. It does feel that way.
I mean, yeah, right. Like if you take, men or women, men are far more likely to apply for a job that they don't feel qualified for than a female, right? Like, yeah, I don't know. It's
I
not
think
about faking it
sometimes,
till you make it, but like raise your hand and like assert yourself and like
but it
ask.
is to a point, right? Like that is actually really important sometimes. Like obviously you have to do the work, but faking it till you make it, like believing in yourself is probably the most important, as corny as it may sound. Like that is really one of the biggest parts, I think, for anybody to do anything that they want to do.
It's so true. I mean, to be totally honest, like the last 4 years, basically, I've been working on Originate with Red Bull.
Yeah.
And when that series came to life, I kind of dreamt it up with this camera team called Real Water based in Squamish. And I had worked with them previously on a Red Bull project. And we dreamt it up. And I asked at this time where I knew, I was like, well, there's not enough like content from women out there. Like we just need to like make more female driven content, like created by women, coming from the athlete's perspective. And we pitched it to Red Bull. They like were totally on board. But the first year I was like, oh shit, like now I'm in control and like I'm like working with a ton of guys and I am intimidated. I'm stressed out because I don't know how to be a leader. Like it was a lot to put on
Even
my plate.
recently.
That was like 4 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like recently in my career, totally, I was like, oh, I'm taking on like so much more than I ever have before. I've been the athlete that like you can show up and you get your job done and you ski really well and then you go home and it's simple. When you take on your own project, let alone one that's producing 6 to 7 short episodes every year, like there's so much more work that goes behind that, right? So the first year was like, whoa, this is a lot. And then I went back the second year and did it. And I was like, I don't know, it was so empowering. Like having done that and had that experience made me up level. And I just felt like that helped me in business and life in my career, like tenfold. And it was really like me taking the initiative to ask. And then, yeah, maybe I was like in over my head and I faked it till I made it, but I like figured it out along the way, right? I learned. It was such this beautiful process. And now I have this incredible experience that I wouldn't have had I not spoken up and raised my hand and asked for something.
Yeah, and if people haven't seen Originate, like it's in the whole series, it's really, really well done. Like it's well edited, it's well put together. It's like the last episode that I just watched before we got on this had like almost 1 million views. Like it's really, really well done. I don't know. I'm kind of just giving you props. There's no question here. I really enjoyed it.
I appreciate it so much. I feel so lucky. I got to kind of build a team with these two main cinematographers that I've worked with over the years that like, I don't know, they're so dialed. We're dialed. We worked really well together. It was a really good overall experience, which I think like, I don't know, in this industry and filming, like sometimes you don't work 3 years in a row together or 4 years in a row together because like, shit hits the fan or whatever. People don't get along, but we just had like such rad times. And it was like, I don't know, we grew together, we learned together. That crew is amazing. So yeah, and Red Bull too, like everyone there. It was really fun to take more ownership over something.
Yeah, and it does seem like people are really enjoying that like series style content lately. Like especially, I mean, Cody's obviously the easiest example because
Totally.
got a bajillion of them out right now. But
Yeah.
it seems like you kind of hit a nerve there with that Originate series.
Yeah, yeah, we have our third season's actually coming out this February, kind of
Awesome.
different timing, but yeah, 4 more episodes will drop, and it was fun to do it that way. It was a different take on it. I think it's interesting though, like it puts you into position when you're in the mountains. Like you might go on a trip and it's like you've got a month to make one episode, whereas like typically you have a year to make a movie, or maybe 2 years to make one movie. You know?
Yeah. Can I ask you your opinion on the whole movie scene at this point? Like movie releases, movie premieres, is that still relevant to this day? Like, is that still something that excites you personally? And do you think that it's, I don't know, obviously it's a very valid form of media. Some would say it's the most valid form of media, but it's not like everything's available on YouTube, right? And half the movies this year because of COVID premiered on YouTube, it feels like. So
Right.
is the traditional model done with, do you think, or is there still value in it?
I don't know. I mean, after COVID, I am craving the in-person events as much
Yeah,
as
me
I
too.
like. I mean, right now we're dealing with this variant, and like a lot of the events that I've, was gonna do with sponsors have been canceled. Um, but yeah, like I love that in-person connection. I think that that will never go away. I hope it won't, gosh, because then we'll all be robots. I
Yeah,
like really enjoy connecting with people and seeing them face to face. And I think that, yeah, movie premieres, to me there could be some like different, like, I mean, there could be like a photography display at the movie premiere. There could be more elements to it, like a slideshow and then the movie or live music or whatever. Like people
right.
can get creative with it. But I do think that there's value there. I think that, like, yeah, because stuff changes all the time. I agree. There's so much content online
So
too now.
much.
Like, wow, it's hard to keep up. And I'm like addicted to it. I love seeing all the projects and everything. And I don't even think that I can see them all. So I think quality over quantity is key still. And anything that you can do to differentiate yourself from the standard, like, I don't know, movie that's been going on for forever, I think is good. Stuff that makes it stand out. Because I know when I'll watch stuff, if it doesn't grab me right away, I'm like, okay, on to the next one. Like there's like so
Yeah.
many projects out. Yeah.
Is there something that you've watched, that's come out in the last 6 months or so that you're really attached to that you really enjoyed?
Yeah. I mean, gosh, there's been a lot. I'm thinking like, well, I really loved and appreciated Precious Leader Woman. Have you seen that movie?
No.
So that's Spencer O'Brien's movie. She's a
Okay.
Canadian snowboarder.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's been a longtime friend of mine. Maybe that's part of why I love it so much. But I like grew up competing with her and traveling and getting rental houses and training in the park back when
Oh,
we did
sick.
slopestyle. Yeah, and that movie's kind of about her reconnecting with her indigenous culture and like her whole process there and sharing that story. And it's just beautiful and definitely have a personal connection to it, but I think it's one of my favorites. Along those same lines, yeah, Connor Ryan's movie,
Yeah, that was
uh,
really good. Spirit of the Peaks.
Fear to the Peaks. Totally, I watched that one yesterday. I was really psyched on that. I
Sick.
thought that was beautiful. I love these new, like, I don't know, I love like a story behind, a project and if the athlete, like, I mean, both of those athletes, but Spencer came out in her movie and was shredding in the backcountry, and she just moved from park to like filming kind of, and watching her
Right.
come out with such a strong like riding segment too. I was like, dang, that was really awesome. But yeah, those two stand out to me off the top of my head. Jess Camara's movie, Learning to
Yes.
Drown.
Yes.
Yeah, that one was really, really moving.
Heavy.
Yeah, blown away by that. Marcus Eder, as far as just straight ski porn, that that one got me for sure. Holy shit. And then Tatum Minode, her movie
Yeah.
last year was really impressive. And that one too, like I have such personal ties to watching Tatum go through a really big injury and then recover and then come back out on top and ski the way she did. That like takes a lot. And yeah, I was really proud of her for that movie.
Yeah, I actually like the more I think about it, the more I realized how stacked this Arc'teryx team is. Like,
Oh,
this is
yeah.
kind of crazy. Like, you guys have a lot of awesome people on this roster.
Oh my gosh. Specifically, like on the women's side, I just gotta
Yeah,
say, wow. Yeah.
it's so insane. And then you got the other side of it where, or I don't know, I feel like it's all sides of it. Katie Burrell involved with it, the Nicole McLaughlin of the world. Like, there's like so much
Totally.
Arc'teryx is doing that's outside of the box right now. So I feel like I have to give him some credit there for sure.
Cole and Sam Cooch, they're like amazing on their skis.
Yeah, for
Eric
sure.
Burlison, my personal hero and legend of the ski industry. Yeah, they've got a really amazing team. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I have a guest question here from Mike Rogie. Wants to know what your experience working with Sam Cohen on Finding Fury was like.
Yes. Awesome question. Yeah, I met kind of, well, I've known Sam for a little while, but I'd never really skied with him until I went to Alaska last year to the Tordillos with Matchstick. And on that trip, we got along, fine enough. And he was like obsessing over this mountain called Mount Fury. He's like, I've been looking at it for 6 years, and he like kept continuously, any chance he got, he's like, Michelle, come look at these photos, just like, and they like wouldn't tell me where it was though, like I knew it was in the Pacific Northwest, but he was like pretty protective until I committed. And then we like sat on the plane together coming back to the States after, leaving Alaska, and he just kept like putting it in my ear. And finally I was like, what do I got to lose? Like, this sounds like a totally awesome time. And I would say, honestly, like from first impression, I don't know if I would like put myself as like, yeah, Samo's going to be my partner in the mountains. Like, but
Right.
we got along super well, and we worked really well in the mountains together. And I always just appreciate it. Like, one of the most important things to me when I have a partner is that they treat me like they're equal. And Samo definitely does that. And when I have that respect from my male partners, or like even, yeah, obviously like any gender, it doesn't even matter. But like that means a lot to me. And yeah, so it was really fun to work with him and to get up there. And he has a lot of energy. He's really excited, and he's like definitely a go-getter. And I think that I've maybe like tone him down a little bit and like with me in the middle there. And he gets me super fired up, but it's probably this like leveling game. Yeah, that was a
That's
special
awesome.
trip though. Holy moly.
Yeah, I bet. I also want to ask you about like, so there's still, and forever there has been these different ski scenes, especially like you talk about the Tahoe area and the kind of crew that you guys kind of have over there, Utah, Colorado. Is there, obviously Tahoe is near and dear to your heart, but where, I don't know, what area makes the best skiers? What area do the best skiers come out of? Because I feel like this has been a debate for a long time, and I'd like your opinion on it.
Yeah, totally. Great question. And I'm totally biased, but I think, yeah, I mean, look at Tahoe. It's pretty stacked.
For
Tahoe
sure,
is
that's what I'm saying.
historically very, very stacked. And, places like Jackson Hole, there's a big ski culture there from like the back in the day with the Jackson Hole Air Force. Yeah, you've seen definitely good athletes coming out of Jackson Hole, but then there's the whole Canadian side of things too. And
Yeah.
like Whistler and Pemberton and the whole Sea to Sky. And then you got Revy, and like, I mean, there's just like an incredible set of mountains there. And the people that I know that like are Canadians that make it, like they don't really need to leave home. Like they
Mhm.
can work from home and just like crush it, which, and it has its up and downs. You're not like a global athlete if you're staying home all the time. But if you can stay home all the time and do your job, that's also like really awesome. Um, Gosh, yeah. I don't know. I would be curious to stack Whistler's roster next to Tahoe's roster.
Yeah, I would too, and I feel like somebody should have done this, and maybe I don't know, fuck it, maybe we
Someone
will. Like,
should.
we'll just kind of put together. Yeah, maybe we'll just put it together. We'll put together a list of all the athletes in all the areas. But then somebody's gonna get mad at me, like, oh, we forgot this or we left this part out. I don't know. I'm always like,
We'd have to be diligent. We'd have to go to the Godfather. Mike Douglas would have to make the like
that's
Whistler list, and we're going skiers and snowboarders like all across the
right.
board.
You
Winter
have to go
sports,
across the board. Yes, for sure.
totally. Do you get bonus points for like a Sean Pettit who skis and snowboards?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Does Sean Pettit even count? I haven't heard anything from Sean Pettit in a while. I feel like.
Yes, he counts. He's a legend. He counts.
I mean, he's the best. Like, he's
Yeah,
the best example of doing both ever. I think. Like, but
yeah.
I only say does eke out, because I don't know what he's even been up to, or if he's skiing, snowboarding, anything. I don't know. I've reached out to him a bunch and I never hear back. And I feel like he's just like, I'm good. He's kind of taking the Seth Morrison approach where he's just like, I don't know, I'm all right. Like, I'm fine.
Yeah, he's chilling. He's having fun with it, which he deserves it. I spent a
100%.
decent, yeah, I spent a decent amount of time with him. It must have been before COVID. So it was like 3 years ago, probably. I stayed at his house for a while one summer.
Yeah.
He
Seems like
was,
seems like an interesting guy.
he's such a gem. Yeah.
I would,
That's
yeah,
so cool.
I'd love to have a conversation with him. I'd love to have a conversation with Seth Morrison as well. Seth has been the one I've been like campaigning for a long time, I think.
Oh,
And
man.
he's finally answered me, and he's just like, I have no interest. I'm like, I've washed my hands of the
He's
ski
just
industry.
not, yeah.
He's like, I'm done. He straight up was like, there's no point in doing a podcast. I hope you have fun skiing. Like, I don't want to talk about anything. I'm just straight up like, I'm done with the ski industry as a whole. And I was like, I actually appreciate that you gave me an answer.
Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah. Wow.
Which is awesome.
Fair. But
Yeah,
man, that makes you want to get that interview.
it
Even.
wants me to, yeah, I want the interview so much more because I just want to talk to him, because growing up, it's like, that's your hero. It's like Seth Morrison was like the guy kind of.
Totally.
And I'd love to hear what goes on in that head, especially when somebody has like the wherewithal to just be like, I'm good. Nobody, like, my contract's done. I'm all
Yeah,
set.
I'm good. Yeah, I don't need this at all. I saw him in Sham a few years ago.
Did you?
Didn't get to hang with him much, which I was like, I was kind of sad. I definitely grew up obviously loving him, and then like traveled with him a little bit with K2, and I was like,
Right.
"What's up, Seth? How's it going? Good to
Yeah,
see
I
you."
thought I thought Mike Powell was gonna get the interview, but Powell said he's completely ignored him, hasn't answered anything he's done. So I'm like,
Oh,
all right, I got the win. I'll take an answer as the win for sure.
that's funny. He's like, "Yeah, I know Pal too well. I'm just not gonna
Yeah,
reply."
Powell said. Speaking of Powell, he wanted me to ask you a question about this thing that he apparently sent you as well. It says online that you are I don't know, you have $100 million in net worth or something like that on this
Yeah,
random website. That seems like pretty high. Like, you're doing something really well for yourself as
yeah, it's true. Everything is true. Um, he sent me that too, and I laughed so hard. Yeah, but I do make a ton of money, so
it's
yeah. I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's a little stretched.
Yeah, for sure. I saw it and I was like, anything with a picture that's that grainy can't be like the reality of the
Yeah,
situation.
yeah. It's good for business though. We keep it up there, right? My net worth is like 100 million. I think it was 100 million.
Yeah, it's a casual $100 million. That would put you in a category of your own for sure. Um, can I ask though, like, how do you continue to be successful at making money enough for this to be your full-time job? Because that's one of the things that I feel like is so hard for people to figure out, is like, at the highest level, there are people who have not figured out the business side of skiing and snowboarding, right?
Yeah, man, I don't know. That's another great question. And really like, yeah, I guess I would consider my first year being a professional skier when I was like 15 or 16, and I'm 34 now. So it's been a run, right? I've learned a lot. I've worked with agents over the years. Now I don't work with an agent, but I think I've learned the business pretty well, and I understand it. And I think for me, like, yeah, you've got to engage with the community. You've got to give back to your sport. When I talked earlier about like what is an athlete nowadays, and even back in the day, it's more than just your skiing ability, right? You are a brand. You're representing yourself, and at the end of the day, like, yeah, I don't know, doing things like Safe As, like hosting events, like that's super important. Producing my own content, and well, going back to this whole burnout thing too, like I think I'm just going to be really candid. Over the last few years, I think I've probably overproduced.
Yeah.
Like if you look at athletes, like I think I've put out a lot of content. And it's been amazing. It's been such a fun ride, but that's not sustainable. So like for me to get psyched again, like I need to take some time to get creative and feel that energy. But yeah, staying engaged is really important, and building off of what you've made in the past. I feel like it's a privilege to be in my situation, but I've also like, it is a full-time job. I don't take a lot of time off. To be frank, I don't really go on vacation. Like I do think that there's, to some extent, I can say my life's a vacation. Like skiing's so fun, but like it's work, and I work really hard at it. And I think that, right, the new me is trying to work less hard at it, to be honest. Like I'm trying to like be a little bit more okay with not overproducing, and be like slow it down a little bit, and And like, yeah, going back to everything, just figure out exactly what I want to do and think about longevity. And yeah, but did that answer your question? I'm
Sort of,
rambling.
yeah, I don't know. No, it's not at all. You look, not at all. There's, people have gone on 10, 15-minute long rants. Do not worry about that. Um, I I don't know. I guess I just wonder how, like, people don't know the roadmap. So do you think it's valuable, like, now that you have the experience, right, you can say, "I don't need an agent. I kind of understand the business." But do you think it's valuable for people to have an agent early on? Does it depend on the person? Is it
It depends on the person. It depends on if you want to take the initiative and like step up and be like, yeah, I'm going to represent myself and I'm going to manage myself and I have good organizational skills, good people skills. I feel good about like negotiating and maintaining that friendship and not letting it tarnish like your relationship. Like there's a lot that goes with that, right? And I always said that I didn't go to like school after high school, which I have taken some college courses, but I like really went to the school of life. And it might sound cliche, but I learned a lot about being a brand, running your own business. Yeah, I don't know, like figuring it out. And so, yeah, I think a lot I learned from having an agent and like watching how they did stuff.
Yeah.
And then also figuring out my worth through what
Mhm.
they were getting and then growing from that. But I take that back to some extent because all of my best contracts I've negotiated myself. I've like, yeah, I've figured that out on my own. And it's not easy, but yeah, it like takes experience. It takes asking people too. Like that's a huge
Yeah.
thing. Like to be fair, like I'm an open book, and a lot of women have reached out to me and just been like, "Hey, can we just like call and talk about this for a minute?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's chat about it." Like no one else is gonna tell you this
Yeah.
stuff. Like there isn't a perfect roadmap. Every athlete has a different roadmap, so that's why it is hard to even pin that down. We've all like Alex Honnold made it to success in a totally different way than Tanner Hall, than
Right.
like whoever, like there's just different maps to go, I guess. But yeah, I think asking and being a learner and not a knower is probably a pretty key to sum it up, to make it real succinct. Be a learner, not a knower.
Yeah.
Ask
I
questions. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
ask and talk about it. I think talking about the money that's one of the things that's starting to happen a little more, and I feel like it that's, eh, super important. Like, people need to know that, like, "Oh, you're making money and this company's only sending me product," right? Like, that's one of the things that I think this industry's done for a long time that doesn't sit that well with me that often, especially with the younger athletes. It's like, if you
Hmm.
can't just take advantage of somebody because they're good and they're young and just send them a bunch of product, right? And it's
Hmm.
also like negotiating is really fucking hard. Like, I have a
It
hard time
is
with it too. It's like when I go and I try to get a new contract for the show, I'm like, am I asking for too much? Am I asking for too little? Am I like shooting myself in the
yeah,
foot down the road? Like, I don't know what anything's worth. Like, I have no, and on the other side of it, it's like the brand knows what everybody's worth, right? They know what they're paying every single person, right? So they've got that advantage.
totally.
So, I don't know, on one hand, you're like an agent kinda gives you some validation for what you can get, like,
Yeah,
because you're like, "Oh, my agent could get that, so I can get that." But at the
totally.
same time, I think you're probably able to get that for yourself if you just believe that you're worth that, right?
Yeah, and like I don't know, if you're a friendly person, you make friends with other people that work at different brands and you have conversations and you're open about it and like yeah, like yeah, you're just asking those questions and you're learning a ton and you can take that information and run with it.
Is there somebody that you look to for advice in this category, right? Like, where you're like, "Okay, I know this person's super business savvy, like, and I know they're really good with contracts." Like, do you run this stuff by people anymore, or are you, like, sound with what you do?
Yeah, totally. My most recent and amazing agent, his name is Ryan Runke, and I worked with him for a number of years. And then I just kind of was like, "Hey, man, I think I can like manage this on my own now. I don't feel as overwhelmed, and like I feel like I've got this." But
Right.
he's just like such a close friend that like, yeah, if I have a question, I totally am like, "Hey, what about this? What do I do here?"
Yeah.
Like, and he's just yeah, I can call him any second of the day, and so yeah, I've got friends around me, and my partner Aaron Blatt, my boyfriend, is amazing and also has been in the industry for a super long time, and it's fun to spitball and talk business and about
Yeah.
this industry that like it is rare that people like have that knowledge and information, but yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, and I think people just don't even know on the outside looking in. Everybody's like, oh, every pro skier is rich, right? Like, so I think to people that would like read an article that says Michelle Parker's net worth is $100 million, they would actually maybe believe that kind of thing, right? Like where they're like,
well, it's true. I'm just kidding. I keep joking about it.
Maybe you're going to speak it into existence. I mean, who really knows? I hope you do.
Totally, right? Yeah, that's not how much I make. Not even close. I mean, really, the reality of it is like, I don't think any pro skiers are in it to get rich.
No,
but like,
for sure.
But it is interesting. You look at action sports, and it's like anything else. There's like a small percentage of people that I think are making like relatively decent living,
right?
And I think it probably drops off like from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how we change that kind of thing because there is money in the industry, right? Like there is money out there. It's just people don't necessarily know how to go get it, right?
And I think that takes a good sports marketing person at the brand too, to look at an athlete and be like, how can I cultivate this athlete from the ground up and give them the best opportunity to succeed? Because I think back in the day, like sponsors, like when I had an injury at one point and I got dropped from basically all my sponsors. Right. And I'm like, well, and then look, my career's gone on for like 15 years past that. Like, what the heck? Why did I get dropped back then by everyone? Like, they didn't cultivate an athlete in me. And then Red Bull comes along and they're like, oh, if you have an injury, we're going to like help you, like pay for your rehab. We're going to like give you physical therapists to work with. Like, if you even want to use our surgeon that we work with, you can use that person. Like, they are looking at investing in that athlete. And it takes a smart and forward thinking sports athlete, like, a sports marketing person at the brand to spend their money wisely too. Yeah. Like, I don't know. For example, you can incentivize someone. You can be like, okay, we're not going to give you money. We're going to give you skis and you're going to go to these competitions and we're going to incentivize you. We're going to give you money if you get on the podium, right? Like first, second, or third. That's basically as far as incentives go. Or you could take this super young athlete that's like super impressionable and be like, hey, we're actually going to invest in you up front. We're going to help pay for your travel budget so that you can get to these places. You can gain this experience. We might not we're not betting on you. Like maybe we do throw an incentive on top of that, but like supporting them so they're not like freaking 18 traveling the world frazzled, like not having money. Like, I don't know. There's a different way of thinking about it and approaching it too, I think, from those positions at the brands that are really helpful, that are like cultivating that. And there's certain individuals in our industry that have done that. Like I've had that helping hand towards me, and I'm so thankful for that. Those are the legends in the industry that are like still around too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really difficult thing to kind of figure out and navigate. And I guess now more than ever, first of all, I think everybody that dropped you at that time has fully regretted it. And I know like even like Powell, like K2 at the time, was like, that was the biggest mistake I ever made, was letting Michelle go. Like, and he said it on air on this podcast. He was like, that was the biggest mistake I ever made. So that kind of stuff is really, I don't know, you look back on it and hindsight's 2020, but a good marketing person at a brand makes all the difference. And they actually realize that, okay, your athlete is not just an athlete, right? It's not just the podiums that they get. It's not just the results that they get or the movie part that comes out. It's like you're investing in the person, and the person is who the people connect with.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's as simple as it gets, right? It's like, I think Kyle Smain and I were talking about it, and it was like, okay, we are marketers. Like we are ski marketers is really what we are as athletes.
Absolutely.
Right? And we definitely not referring to myself. We referring to Kyle said this, not me. But yeah, it's definitely like it's just part of it. And I think that's you're starting to see more and more brand heads realize that it's an extremely viable way to promote a brand or a product.
Totally. It's been the age-old way of doing it, right? Thanks to Scott Schmidt. I think he might be the first action sport athlete in the world to get paid. Yeah.
Well, I hope the paychecks only get bigger and bigger, and I hope things I hope you get to that 100 million, if that's what you want. Maybe, I mean, honestly,
I don't really care.
Yeah,
more money, more problems. I don't know.
I agree. I
want to be life rich and pow rich.
That seems like a very good call.
Yeah.
Michelle, thank you for the time.
Wait, are we done?
If you want to be, I mean,
we're just getting started. I'm just kidding.
It's 50 minutes in.
I love it.
where can people find you on social media that you don't like, and where can people find you on the internet overall?
Wait, actually, okay, I think it was Goldie Hawn or Pamela Anderson. I don't know. It was like one of these celebrities, and you guys should look at her Instagram. Her last post is like, "Nature is way better than this shit. I'm out." I think it's Pamela Anderson. Go look at it. Yeah.
What is
Anyways,
he talking about right now?
she bailed on Instagram. I've always thought about doing it. Just like, see you later. I'm done. Wipe your hands clean.
I'm surprised that fucking Seth hasn't done this, by the way, and is like still answering people like mine DMs.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
if you're gonna
I
disappear
think
from
it's
the industry and spray paint Pamela Anderson, he said.
I think it is her. Yeah, just check it out. But I'm not gonna bail on Instagram. My Instagram is Michelle Parker, MYSHE.
Oh, she did.
Isn't that sick?
That's
Yeah,
fuck. I've
respect.
never been interested in social media, and now that I'm settled into life, I'm genuinely inspired by reading and being in nature. I am free. Thanks for the love. Blessings to all.
Yeah,
Jesus, good for you, Pamela Anderson.
right. Be like Pamela Anderson. Just walk
Oh,
away.
all right, sorry.
I
What
think it'll make
Instagram?
us better. So, but if you must follow me on social media, it's Michelle Parker, MYSHELL Parker, on Instagram and Twitter, and yeah. Otherwise, check out Originate. It comes out in February.
Do we have a date? Do we have an official date yet?
No, I don't even know it yet.
Oh God. Okay. All right. Sounds good. We'll put it out when whenever that comes out. We'll post it. We'll share it everywhere.
Hey, it's
Um,
been so fun. I wish it was longer. I'm like, you've
is
got
it
me
is this the
totally
final year?
engaged. Originate?
Yeah.
I don't know, it could always come back up, but it felt like when we filmed the last episode, it felt like there was some closure. Like, whoa, we've done a lot. That's like, what, 3 or 4 seasons? And yeah, I don't
Huh.
know. We'll see. This last like year, what we focused on was not as much skiing, more storytelling, more other avenues of life that I'm interested in, which was really fun.
I feel like that stuff is more okay. Well, now that we're rolling on this again for a second, we're gonna just keep. I got a
We're
couple other
rolling.
questions real quick. Uh, yeah, I feel like that's the kind of shit that people enjoy though right now, right? Is like the what you enjoy in video format. It's like I don't know. I hate the vlog style stuff.
Right.
It's almost like it's more insight into you as a person.
Yeah, totally. It felt that way, and it's been something that's captivated me for sure. I just like storytelling, and my team of cinematographers, Brian and Cam, are just really good storytellers. So I had just
Yeah.
like the people in place. Like that, you don't come by that often in the ski industry is people who can like make a ski movie but also tell a good story. And so yeah, we dove into mountain biking, had a really good time with that. I'm obsessed with mountain biking. And then we also went up to Fairy Creek on Vancouver Island and stood up for old growth, which was an amazing experience. That was really cool. Yeah. So, yeah. And there's a couple more in there, but it's fun to dive into other avenues. Right. And like,
Yeah. Is
yeah.
mountain biking a new thing for you, or is that like has that always been a thing?
It's been a thing for a while, for sure. In my 20s, I got into it, but in the last like little while, like I really got really into it. The last 3 years, I think my interest levels peaked, and I went and entered my first mountain bike race this summer, the Trans Cascadia up in
Heck.
Washington. Yeah, which was really fun. It was an enduro race. So you're timed on the way down, but not on the way up. And that was like totally kicked my butt. It was such a really amazing experience. I love like throwing myself into these activities that you're just the new one and you're like, whoa, I am the rookie and I'm super vulnerable. And I find that it's like when I have the most personal growth at times, or I like push myself past these perceived limits that we put on ourselves. And yeah, I like being the new one.
Yeah, and I guess like a good example of that is that 50 project series of episodes that you did with Cody was like that exact thing where you guys are like pushing yourselves to the absolute limit, getting to the top, and like you're kind of watching you guys at I don't know, maybe at peak burnout, or who knows, maybe it's not peak burnout. Who really knows anymore?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's,
totally.
it's rad.
Throwing
All right,
yourself into the unknown, it's good. We should all do that more too.
yeah, I agree. I agree for sure. All right, Michelle, what's your Instagram one more time because we haven't actually gotten out of you, I don't think. Where can people follow you, and where can people find you? Where can people find Originate?
Originate is on Red Bull TV or YouTube and Instagram, Myshell Parker, MYSHELL. Parker. Michelle was taken. I don't know. So spelled it Michelle.
Michelle. All right. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks.